I'm fine. How are you? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's Botswana today?
Rainy and sunny at the same time. So it just rained very heavily.
Oh,
And then after trees fell down and everything was a mess,
yeah.
the sun came back out and it's hot again. So
Okay.
yeah, so it gets like that around this time of the year.
Yeah, sounds hectic. I think I saw that in South Africa as well. Canada is snowy today. Apparently it's not
Ah,
for the next couple of days, but yeah, all is well. For
how
me,
is how is how is adjusting of South Africa to
it's really fine. I think the world is we do things very similarly. There's really not much change except for the weather. But
uh,
I think you would
oh,
do very well in Canada.
uh,
Bobby, welcome to the IT Global Direction. I am your host for today. My name is Rorisang Hlahatsi-Baloyi. Bobby, please introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us who you are, what do you do, and what's a hot topic on the table that you'd like to share with our viewers today.
so thanks. My name is Bobby Moeng. I'm a group head of information technology in one of the financial institutions in Botswana. So yeah, I'm generally a tech enthusiast, and not only just tech. I'm also a human enthusiast. I always tell people that I'm a transformational type of IT leader. I try to always blend the minimize or at least soften the robotic stereotype that comes with he or she is an IT in midst like this. So I always try to get that balance going. So in a nutshell, that's what I am.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Bobby, what do you think as a leader in IT, what is one of the key burning topics that you think leaders must start discussing and putting forward?
I think the first thing is not only just IT leaders, it's I think two things. The first thing is the human aspect of IT or just any workforce employee. Oftentimes you find that when it comes to IT, yes, you can have a good staff complement, but that's why they always stereotype say, the IT person comes in wearing jeans in a formal environment, and it's always the guys who are spending the nights they're late. So I think one of the key things going forward, especially post-COVID, is that one key aspect for people to really consider is the human aspect of IT. IT is notorious for burnouts. People tend to work a lot and not always really compensated well. So I think that's one of the burning topics in IT now. When you go moving forward after the COVID, where people went through the traumas and everything and that, management and leadership should bring that aspect of into the whole IT industry to get that, other departments you find that softer in an organization. How are you? Are you well? Are you rested? You don't work overnight, but in IT, if you you can get a call at midnight to say, look, Rory, just wake up and get to work. So I think it should be something that should be considered going forward. I introduce that a lot in my my departments, and it often rubs the exco in the wrong way. But eventually people get used to that culture that people can be KPI based and still take care of them. And then I think the second one, I would say IT governance. It's easy to say you're in IT, and oftentimes we work from project to project. Ad hoc issues. This server is down. It means you need to replace the drives. The firewall is not patched well. This update, whatever. But we hardly, as IT people, look at IT governance. Step back and say, let me step back from the switches. Let me step back from the fact that we need more fiber or redundancy, or we need to put a new 40K device. But what are we trying to do here? Let's look at what we have. Let's look at how it affects business. And let's look at how cost effective it is. Let's look at how it's affecting the organization in 5 years' time. We as IT people are notorious for that. That's why oftentimes we get our budget proposals shut down because we we don't bring that. We don't invest in learning that as IT people. So I think that's one topic that I'm really passionate about, and I would like to always implore my colleagues in the industry when they come back and say, look, my budget got shut down. I always ask them, pitch it to me. Just pitch it to me over drinks or over dinner. Tell me what you said to the executive. And I always say, now you get why it actually didn't go through.
And are there any frameworks in the industry that you would advise other leaders to use to embed governance into IT processes? Or do you have any framework that you have maybe invented yourself that you think is working?
I can't think of one. I know there is it Race and Ways? They actually came up with a way, but I'll just share with that. But I found a way that there's a systematic thing that I use. I just a month ago, I managed to get in pullers, you know how much, I think it was 1.6 million puller budget approved. Not many budgets get approved in the last quarter of the year. But in August, I managed to get that the proposal in front of the board, in front of my managing director and the finance director. And the key thing is what I do. I don't focus on the functionality. A lot of IT guys, or us in the IT industry, I know the key thing is like cars, you know. You know this thing is a V8, you know, you get this free credit for knowing it's a V8, it does this. And the same thing goes in IT. When you now sit in front of other IT people, you want to show them that you know that this Cisco switch is a 9300, it can actually do this. So we tend to get caught up in the features. But business doesn't care. Frankly, if you approach it from that mindset, it's an ouch. But my method is that I don't get caught up. Business doesn't care. If so I was expanding our disaster recovery. So nothing gets approved after August where I work. So it's just winding down towards finishing. But I managed to get it approved because what I do, I focus on the business side. I say, look, this is where we are as a business. This is how we operate. And as we operate, this is what we can't afford to lose. Right? There, obviously, business will like, yeah. So then I go and select, like in this instance. So if we are to be down, I don't want to know the funds that we make per day, whatever. It's above my pay grade. But you would know better. So if we are to be down for how much is your risk tolerance? Because I also study risk. I'm almost actually ready to write my project, my Prince 2. I'll be writing it in a week or two's time. So I said, you will calculate your risk as business. So how much are you willing to lose? How much would you lose in revenue in an hour of downtime? And the whole room got cold. Like, what are you saying? I'm like, no, I don't want to know the numbers because obviously that's your level. You and how much would you lose if you have downtime in half a day? I said, right now there's a global parts shortage issue. It takes 4 to 6 months to get a Cisco switch. So then they were like, yeah, we can't actually afford any downtime. But how much is your tolerance? They say 1 hour maximum. I'm saying, wow. Then I don't think the equipment we have in place can actually support that tolerance level. What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, this is what we have in place. It's old, it's obsolete. I've talked about this for 2 years and the business is growing. So if I give you a scenario, if the current systems, the servers in the DR side go down, we'll probably have to wait about 4 months to get them from HP or Dell or wherever we're going to get from. The immediate answer from business is like, we can't afford that. So I'm like, that's why I'm here. So you see, they related to that. So a lot of times we have this gap between what IT can do and what business wants. Business wants money to come in. They want continuity. They want the servers to be up, the switches to be up, the access points to be up. They don't really need to know it's a Ruckus access point. They just wanted something to work. So when you talk about IT governance, you're talking about a lot of things, you know, the decision domains, when you talk about like, what are the key areas that IT needs to do to support business? It might be a simple thing as we need to hire 2 more IT people. It doesn't always necessarily mean you have to buy equipment. So IT governance look at how broad-wise is IT actually helping to sustain business. You might have the best equipment, but you actually are understaffed.
Yeah.
So you look at those things like, what are the archetypes? Who governs what? Who looks after what? We don't want to be stepping on each other's toes if there's a problem.
Yeah.
And not only in the IT department, that Rory might be the head of IT, but who is she working with at ExCo level? In terms of emergency, in terms of decision making, is the board aware of what are we doing as IT in terms of taking this forward? So the moment you do IT governance, you look at those things. What are the implementation strategies that we have as IT for 2023 that will support business goals? So you start to align business with IT.
Yeah.
Business, what do you want to do for next year business? No, you want to get this, want to open a branch, you want to get more. Then you take that and use that as a basis for your IT strategy. You see that, so that when you come back now to say, well, in that case, we'll need 20 more switches, we'll need or 5 more, we need to actually get more fiber in that department, because you are speaking to what they want done.
Yeah.
The conversation becomes much. So a lot of times, it's one thing I'm passionate about. A lot of times in IT, we struggle to make that mark because we like, no, we just need to put new switches next year. Why? No, I just need like $500 or $100,000 to just put these things. Okay, but why? No, but we need these things. I don't get why we need these things, So I always laugh when my colleagues call me annoying because I managed to get that all because like they'll get that budget rejection. I'm like, no. So IT governance is very important going forward.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the skills that IT leaders need to know, not only just as a CIO level, but from when you're a leader, even before you become a manager or a group head, just to learn to bridge the gap between when I always teach that to my teams. So when they come to me to say, sir, you know what, like they're talking about the fact that we need to actually get to reduce add some scanners or whatever. They need to first justify why we need it. I can read about the features on Google, but why do you need to buy that 100,000 bullet or rand or dollars equipment? Yeah. Then they justify to me. Sometimes a back and forth, it gets them disgruntled. But once they've convinced me, then I know they know why they want stuff bought. Yeah, the other time they came to me and said, we need to replace all the access points in the headquarters. And I'm like, but these ones are like less than 2 years old. And then they actually systematically managed to tell me why we need to move from the liquidity to actually just go to Rakas. They say, look, it's a packet loss, which means people actually struggle to connect as quickly as they could, which delays the turnaround times in terms of customer service. And if somebody's waiting so now you see where the governance comes. You are interested now in making sure that the customer serving team is actually constantly connected, because usually when you note on the portal, they have downtimes every 30 minutes. That lasts about 5 minutes. So IT governance is about just not being in the department, closed, antisocial, not talking to people. You now want to know what business wants to achieve.
It's actually interesting, Bobby, that you made like IT governance more practical. Because if maybe I were to ask other IT experts, they would maybe jump into a model and say IT governance using like a COVID model. You just take it a step further. You now discussing it into how do you bring it into play. Another one that I could also think of is, I think way back, there was a model called the SAM model that aligns business and IT, where you need to make sure that whatever you do as an IT person, you are aligning to the business objectives. But I don't think, maybe I missed that part. going into much detail into first, rather than going and buying those shiny technologies like we always do as IT, because they're exciting and latest, it's important that you first sit with business and truly understand what they really need and simplify their world and advise based on the needs that are projected for the following year. So that
that's true.
That's true.
That's true, because I'll tell you what, you realize a lot of people will say, it took me a while though to actually get this right as well. So a lot of guys will say, look, my IT budget for this year is like maybe $1 million or $500,000, and I can't go over it. And it took me a while to realize that business always has money, you know. But if they do. Even this recent project, it was above my budget. And the only scolding I got from them was that you didn't add this to your budget at the beginning of the year. But in terms of understanding why we need it now, so you have to get to that level where you say you speak business, form the relationship, not only tell the business about we implemented the switches at this branch and the ATMs. Yes, keep them updated, but at the same time, make them see that you understand the impact of adding those switches there, the impact of actually thinking about adding more access points or transforming. Like right now, I'm thinking of transforming the call centers we have to soft phones, to work from anywhere. It's a difficult topic because people don't want to move. Now COVID is subsided, people want to move to having people back in the office. And they want more people still in smaller spaces. So when you start talking about these things, now I want to introduce that work from home, where we have the Cisco soft phones or whatever. So the model that I'm using is, I speak now to overhead costs. It's not, I don't even know how much we pay overhead costs, but I'm saying, look, if you now have half of this team or a quarter of this team working from home this week, next week they'll rotate with the other ones. You're saving on the coffee, you're saving on the electricity, are you saving on the space? People now can breathe. People, you can't cram people back in. So when I start speaking on those, one of our finance director, operations director, she went like, yeah, but these people are actually consuming a lot of coffee. Yeah? I'm like, yeah, but if they have good bandwidth at home, they have soft phones, they have KPIs, let them work from home. Tell them, not everybody will fall into it, but so when you start talking to business about that, you create a very strong relationship, because then they start bringing you in as the IT person. Come in, we are like, we are thinking of doing this next year. Do you think it's possible as IT to actually assist us in that goal? Well, I think it's possible. If you consider 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it might cost you a couple of $100. Or funny thing, we might actually refurbish the equipment that you already have to meet that objective. So you start to become part of the business now. And then everybody needs to now be part of so once you work with the ExCom management, even the board, that's why I say now you start to have where you say decision domains. Who am I making this decision with as an IT person? Architect.
Bobby, there's often a challenge with IT leaders in convincing, whether it's the board or executives, into revamping the IT world and convincing the board the return on equity in revamping. Because the question is that we'll still have the same functionality. How do you position that to your leaders?
In terms of like, as we are refurbishing the equipment and
because you often find like big organizations having legacy systems, because it's not an easy conversation to convince when on now we need to move from legacy to more shiny technology, but there is a valid reason, because you need to move to more modern technologies. But the question is, if the functionality is still the same, where's the return on equity on this investment that we need to be doing? So how do you position that?
I think one of the key things to start with is like end of life,
Yeah.
So when you think like, what, somebody talking about a 2900 switch still there. So usually the way to do it is take it from a manufacturer's perspective. So what you do is like, what, we do have that switch, it's working fine. Yes, it's working fine. But let me show you, this thing went end of life 2015, end of support 2018. So this is what it means. So once you start explaining to them that for end of support, for instance, it means, well, it might be working fine. Should push comes to shove in this thing that you are using at this branch to process all the payrolls, to transact to all the suppliers, they rely on that specific switch. If something happens to it, Cisco won't even touch it. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million. If you are willing to spend $1 million on this thing, which Cisco tech to come and support it, they will tell you is they stopped supporting it 4 years ago. So you're running a risk of not upgrading. And you can ask Cisco itself or HP or whatever, but once they say end of support, it means no one literally will get on a call with us. We will have to buy a new equipment then. And on an optimal basis is 4 to 6 weeks. Again, how much are you willing to lose as a business? I can maintain it for you, but as a disclaimer, and I'm indemnifying myself that if something goes wrong. So once you do that, people get unsettled. They're like, yeah, but it works. But so what do you think we should do now? Well, I'm saying we'll get. So one of the things also to do, I reuse old equipment. I don't throw it away.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times IT we mess up by when you get the shiny new toy. And you go into Rory's data center, there's a section full of boxes there of all the switches that are not used, and somebody looks like, I'll be spend like a lot of money on those. Now they're being used to, So what I do, I find the use for the old equipment. I'll take it to support the newer switch at the new branch. I'll take that firewall that is now obsolete. I'll take it and say, well, we can still use it for this. Hell, if push comes to shove, we can even take it and put it in one of the executives' homes and say, look, you have this equipment at home to work from home. You need a firewall. Since you bought us a shiny new one, this you can refurbish and we can actually use it for your use. So refurbishment is also very important to say, look, what are you going to do with the equipment that you're taking out after you buy this expensive one?
Bobby, thank you so much for joining IT Global Direction today. I am going to try and highlight key points that you raised today. You mentioned the importance of aligning with business when you are budgeting, which is critical. Aligning to business objectives and understanding what business needs before looking at shiny technologies and convincing the business otherwise, but rather look at the other way around. What I also liked is the practicality of governance that you're using, because in many instances we put in models and we're trying to fit in everything into models. But you have taken it to a step further to say, now let's put it into practicality, into the real world. How do we now implement these in real life? You also indicated the importance of not just throwing away your old technologies, but seeing how you can revamp them and reuse them into your world before also buying new technologies, which I thought was quite interesting. Did I miss out any critical point that you raised for me?
No, I think that's just that. I think one of the one of the things, I'm also big on cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Very passionate. Once I finish my Prince 2, I'll be doing my CISSP. I'm very passionate about that. I teach that a lot. I do cybersecurity awareness trainings I have an agency that is 6 months old. It's called Parapet Cyber, so on LinkedIn. The idea is not to sell equipment, but to to go in there and sell a firewall. But I'm educating a lot of organizations into the vulnerabilities that come with the post-COVID, not only post-COVID, but how much they need information security, how important it is. So we do a lot of consulting where we can look into what we have in place. Outside the box perspective, where we do cybersecurity audits, and then we can give you a report that you can also take it to your employer and say, look, we're doing good so far. Or we can say, look, if there are gaps as well, we have and she's writing an NSC 5 now, who is at our tech who now look into remedying these issues. And then we also do support and also do a lot of corporate cybersecurity awareness training. Because again, you can be as guided as you are in terms of your infrastructure. But if if a hacker drops a USB outside organization's steps in the morning, Bobby picks it up. I wonder what this is. Plugs it into your computer, Trojan horse. So a lot of times, internally, we are the ones who are causing the vulnerabilities, the attachments, the websites we go to. So I also have a startup that we are doing that as well.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. So you're multitasking.
So we do that across a lot. Hospitality. We've done that for a couple of years. So.
No, that's incredible, Bobby. I think it also adds into governance a bit, embedding security into our government policies, which is quite important. It's not an afterthought. It's something that you think of upfront.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
That's great. Thank you for joining IT Global Direction, and hope our viewers will enjoy your podcast and your learnings and what you've shared today, Bobby. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm the one who's humble. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it.